Hey everyone, and welcome back to yet another Professor Oak's challenge. It's been a while since the last one, and since almost no one watched the challenge in Brilliant Diamond, I thought, hey, why not do something more unusual this time? Something more sinister. Something like Pokemon Rocket Edition. You always wanted to play the bad guys for once, being sick of rescuing the world over and over again. Groudon here, Dialga there, super weapons, Yveltal, Ultra Beasts, and whatever Lusamine wanted in Gen 7. Well, I always wanted to. This ROM hack of Fire Red definitely has you covered if you think similarly. But now you may think, well, if you are playing as a rocket, can you even do the Oaks challenge? Since, well, you know, getting gym badges really isn't the focus of the game? Well, it turns out you can, but we have to get a little bit creative here. Instead of actual gym badges, we mainly do missions for Boss Giovanni. And the more missions we achieve, the more trainers we can steal their Pokemon from. Yeah, you heard that one right. In old Colosseum fashion, well, more or less, you can borrow Pokemon from trainers in this ROM hack. As we rise the ranks of the Rocket organization, we can steal from more and more trainers. This means in the beginning we are kinda restricted on what we can get. And this is where we build our Oaks challenge around. I'm trying to get as many Pokemon as possible before our mission ends. Sometimes I need to skip certain trainers because I can't steal from them yet. But in the end, I try to get as many Pokemon as possible in the game. For that, I'm using the guide made by Metleon, which of course I will link in the description below. Thanks a lot for the guide, by the way. It saved me a ton of time. Big shoutouts to him. So, how about we start our journey? We start by being a Rocket Initiate at the Celadon hideout. And getting gifted our starter Pokemon Rattata. Ronnie, our buddy in crime, teaches us how to steal a Pokemon from a trainer. And by defeating Susie, we get our first choice of the game, which Pokemon to steal. This time stealing Spearow or Pidgey. I had to take her Spearow since we can catch wild Pidgey in the first section later. Our first mission involves flying to Mount Moon to get our hands on one of the fossils. A plotline which you may be familiar with if you played the Kanto games. Back at the hideout, I picked up the coin case, which will become interesting very soon, picked up the HM for flying, and also some good items I can sell to get some money for Pokeballs, including a PP up. In this first section, we are basically restricted to Mount Moon, Celadon City, and Route 7, so I picked up every item I could in Celadon and got around 22 Great Balls out of it. Putting the Great Balls to good use immediately, I went to Route 7 and got myself a very important Pokemon, Meowth. Not only because of the whole Rocket LARP, but also because of, you might have guessed, its ability pickup. The first one I caught also had a Nugget as a hold item, so we are off to a good start. I got a team of 6 Meowth to maximize my pickup chances, and got all of the other Pokemon I can get here. That is Growlithe, Oddish, Pidgey, and a Poliwag, which I can steal from the only trainer here, Gambler Robert. In Celadon City itself, I also got the Gift Eevee, which you also know about. I taught Pidgey fly and flew to Mount Moon to get access to the next area. After the cutscene has played out, I went to the Pokemart and bought a very familiar Magikarp, which many of you also know about. Yeah, Magikarp in Section 1. I bet it doesn't get any worse. Anyways, in Mount Moon I also got, well, through more or less legal means, Weedle, Zubat, Clefairy, found 2 Moonstones, Metapod, Geodude, Jigglypuff, found the TM for Thief, which will become very handy soon, teaching Thief to Meowth, borrowed Nidoran Female, caught a Paris, and that's basically it for the section, since if we would go any further, I would trigger the end of the mission. So, we have our boundaries, and I can start leveling up what we got so far. During leveling up in Mount Moon, I got another Moonstone from a wild Clefairy, we need 4 in total by the way, and eventually I got another one. And also my first shiny of the run, while training at round 7. Whoa! It being a shiny Oddish. Eventually, one of my Meowth evolved at level 28 into Persian, losing its pickup ability unfortunately. It was followed by Zubat evolving into Golbat, Weedle evolving into Kakuna, and Beedrill. Pidgey evolving into Pidgeotto, and eventually into Pidgeot, which, as you can imagine, is always pain. but at least a few pickup rare candies made it a little bit easier. My strategy in general was to train my Pokemon to about level 30, and afterwards I used my excess rare candies I had picked up. Nidoran evolved into Nidorina, and Nidoqueen using a Moonstone. Jigglypuff into Wigglytuff, Clefairy into Clefable, and using another Moonstone, Eevee into Umbreon. At this point I had quite a few rare candies saved up, so I spoiled myself a little bit and used a couple on Magikarp until it learned Tackle, so the grind wouldn't be too much of a hassle. The strategy paid out, and it evolved into a Gyarados after about 1 hour of training on Route 7. Continuing, I evolved Spearow into Fearow, and Golbat into Crobat after finally getting enough friendship. Man, I really hate the friendship-based Pokemon in those challenges. Metapod evolved into Butterfree, and I got my next shiny Pokemon here, it being a shiny Pidgey. Going on, I evolved my top % starter Rattata into Raticate at level 20, which wasn't too bad. Poliwag into Poliwhirl at level 25, and thanks to having access to the evolution stones in Celadon immediately, into Poliwrath using a Water Stone. Using a Fire Stone, I evolved Growlithe into an Arcanine, Oddish into Gloom, and into Vileplume using a Leaf Stone. Paras into Parasect, Geodude into Graveler, and in tradition with other ROM hacks, the last trait evolution is also available, just at a ridiculously high level, it being level 40 here, to evolve Graveler into Golem. All in section 1 by the way, where your average EXP yield is like 20 to 50 EXP. And if you think, well, just use the rare candies, duh. They aren't particularly likely to spawn, even with 5 pickup Pokemon. So this still took quite a bit of time. And eventually, after around 40 hours in-game time, it happened and Graveler evolved into Golem at level 40. With Golem out of the way and 41 Pokemon, we can finally move on, right? Right? Well, remember the coin case? Remember that we are in Celadon City? Remember prize Pokemon? Oh, I wonder what those are. Oh my god. Is that Dratini Scyther? Does it also evolve at high level? Oh no! Well, you see, pickup wasn't only used for rare candies. As you can see, we need a lot of money for the prize Pokemon here. Around 364,000 Pokédollars. But funny enough, after all of this grinding, we even have some money extra, thanks to plenty of nugget pickups. Let's get this over with, shall we? I bought every single prize Pokemon, including Abra, Dratini, Scyther, and Porygon. Luckily some of them start with a higher level, but getting Dragonite in section 1 is... After a bit of grinding, Abra evolved into Kadabra and into Alakazam at level 33. Not too bad so far. Porygon was quite a bit more annoying, evolving into Porygon 2 at level 36, and thankfully there's no Porygon Z yet. Scyther evolved into Caesar at a whopping level 44. Excuse me for a second. And finally, with all of the remaining mental energy and rare candies left, Dratini evolved into Dragonair, and at level 55, into Dragonite. Our in-game time clocked in at about 65 hours, and finally we can leave this horrifying first section, containing 51 Pokemon in total. As we progress through Mount Moon, we now have our first encounter with Red. He is quite essential part of this ROM Hack's plotline, just that this time he won't have an easy time beating the Rocket Grunts there, with us having a level 55 Dragonite. Well, we defeat him, but pretend to lose, so the plot can kind of continue, and the story plays out like in the original games. Red beats Team Rocket at Mount Moon, gets one of the fossils, and we are ordered back to Giovanni for our next mission. This mission wants us to convince Bill to make Porygon for Team Rocket. And the Kanto map opens up a bit more, as we can now bribe the guard on Route 7 to let us pass into Saffron City and Cerulean City afterwards. In Cerulean City, I fought the bike shop owner and convinced him to give me one of his bikes. Got thrown out of the local gym for, being a thug, like on any other regular Tuesday, and made my way to Nugget Bridge. Here I borrowed a Venonat, a Sandshrew, Mankey, saw that the Nugget Bridge guy seems to be a bit overworked, continue to get an Ekans, a Caterpie, Slowpoke, Nidoran male, and I made sure to not go into Bill's house, since this would mark the end of the mission and trigger the next cutscene. Well, it seems like we have all Pokemon we can get in this section, so let's start grinding some levels. As you can see, I got another Nidoran, so I headed back to Mount Moon to get another Moonstone from a wild Clefairy. I can't stress this enough, but 5% chance, by the way, of one holding a Moonstone, on a Pokemon that appears like 5% at a time, with a reduced encounter rate because of the ROM Hack's design choice. Yeah. But eventually I got one, and I continued to grind for levels. Venonat evolved into Venomoth at level 31. I bought some more evolution stones for later, and Slowbro evolved into Slowking using a Water Stone, and Nidoran into Nidorino, and into Nidoking thanks to our hard-earned Moonstone. Oh, by the way, during this time after battle, 3 of my 5 Meowth got a rare candy, which really freaked me out, as they are quite rare to obtain as a pickup item. Maybe one of you can calculate the possibility of 3 rare candies spawning in after one battle. Anyways, Mankey evolved into Primeape, Sandshrew into Sandslash, Ekans into Arbok, and that basically marked the end of the section, now having 65 Pokemon in total and after 78 hours of in-game time. We have a little chat with Bill and find out that he's basically a sociopath, but hey, he gets us a cell phone. Afterwards we kick Blue's butt and the story of the ROM Hack continues. It seems like Ronnie was the guy responsible for the break-in Cerulean City, and we flee the scene. Thanks to him, now the police of the Kanto region is at our butts, so yeah. Thanks, Ronnie. In the secret hideout, we watch a TV interview where Champion Lance basically declared war on Team Rocket, and the bounty system's introduced. You see, if you continue to be a bad person, steal borrowing Pokemon from other trainers, it increases the price on our head. And at some point, even stores won't allow us to buy items from them. That's why I got a bunch of evolution stones earlier, and as much Great Balls as I could buy. Anyways, we get our next mission, getting some exotic Johto Pokemon from Lieutenant Surge, in exchange for some, well, steroids. Well, this ROM hack definitely is more adult than the regular games. On our way to Vermilion City, we crossed Saffron and started the first side quest of the game. You see, as a Rocket Grunt, people can take our services, and we can decide to help them for some juicy rewards. In this case, it's the dojo owner in Saffron City, being a bit annoyed by the man who hands out the TM Pop Psychic at every passing trainer, because it makes them steamroll their dojo. By taking his side and kicking the TM's guy's butt, we can't get the Psychic TM, but one of the dojo prize Pokemon. I took Hitmonlee this time. Leaving Saffron City behind us, I battled more and more trainers and grabbed a Psyduck, Pikachu, Farfetch'd, Doduo, Horsey, Bellsprout, Drowsy, and Vulpix. Then I got roasted by a kid and got a Magnemite. By this point we ran into the next roadblock, as the sleeping Snorlax won't allow us to continue here. Diglett's cave is accessible, and beside it being a good spot to level our Pokemon, I got Diglett and a Duck Trio here. On the other side of the cave, there's a dude selling us a flashlight, which is this game's substitute for the HM Flash. Thank God. And by trading away an Abra, I also got myself a Mr. Mime here. I tried to get into the SSN, but we have to talk to Lieutenant Surge first. Doing that, we delivered a special parcel, steroids, and we are allowed to board the SSN, so we can get our hands on a Johto Pokemon for the mission. On board, there's one more trainer we can borrow a Pokemon from, it being Gentleman Lamar, who is nice enough to give us his Ponyta. Speaking to the captain would result in the end of the mission, so now we have the boundaries of this section. Training in Diglett's cave and on Route 11, Bellsprout evolved into Weepinbell and Victreebel with another Leaf Stone. Using a Firestone, Vulpix evolved into Ninetales, and a Thunderstone to evolve Pikachu into Raichu. Drowsy evolved into Hypno at level 26, Doduo into Dodrio, Magnemite evolved into Magneton at level 30, and Ponyta into Rapidash at level 40, Horsey into Seadra at level 32, and, of course, Trout Evolution into Kingdra at level 50. Psyduck into Golduck, As you can imagine, especially the level 40 and 50 evolution took quite a while. And after around 103 hours in-game time and 90 Pokemon, I was able to end this mission. We talk and fight the captain, grab his Krabby, and well, it turns out we are the reason he's getting seasick later. On the way back to the hideout, we also take a look from the distance at a certain truck in a certain place, and I'm sure it has nothing to do with anything. Anyways, back in the hideout we talk to Giovanni, and get our next mission, together with a nice Sylph Scope. Our mission is to have a little talk with Mr. Fuji, and doing so we made our way to Lavender Town. On the way I stole another Poliwag for another in-game trade later. Got an Execute, Machop, Onix, Voltorb, ran into Blue and had a nice chat over his Raticate, well, caught Ghastly, Haunter, and using the Sylph Scope a Marowak and a Cubone. Going to the top level of the Pokemon Tower would trigger the end of the mission, so let's take care of the Pokemon we got so far. Rock Tunnel and Pokemon Tower especially are great spots for grinding some levels, since you can heal your Pokemon here immediately. Machop evolved into Machoke at level 28, Execute into Executor using a Leaf Stone, I traded the Poliwag, which I had to evolve into Poliwhirl, for Jinx, evolved Onix into Steelix at level 36, which wasn't too bad honestly, Voltorb into Electrode, Krabby into Kingler, Haunter into Gengar, and as my last Pokemon for the section, Machoke into Machamp at level 45. And with 20 additional in-game time hours and 107 Pokemon, we can now finally talk to Mr. Fuji. Doing that ended the mission, and we leave the Pokemon Tower again, after stealing Mr. Fuji's Ditto of course. After a little chat with Oak, we are back at the Celadon hideout, and get promoted into Rocket Admin. This means we aren't restricted to steal trainers from kids and old men anymore, but also from all female trainers and male teenagers. Neat. Our mission is to spy a little bit on Professor Oak, and on the way to Pallet Town I borrowed a Tentacool from Les Sally. In Pewter City I also started another side quest, including the Pewter City nurse Joy, who accuses her boyfriend on cheating. We take a look at the issue soon enough, but not before evolving Tentacool into Tentacruel at level 30. In Viridian City we find Nurse Joy's boyfriend, and find out that all of this has just been a huge misunderstanding. The blonde short woman Nurse Joy saw wasn't actually a woman, but a Jinx. For our efforts we get rewarded a red flute, and more importantly, Nurse Joy's next side mission will be available soon afterwards. Over at Pallet Town, Oak isn't in his lab, but Agatha of the Elite Four sees us and invites us to Daisy's house, where we learn that Oak basically is a war criminal. Man, this ROM hack. Honestly, I always suspected Oak to be. Anyways, once Agatha is gone, Ronnie comes in and, well, we are kinda forced to battle Daisy, taking her Chansey into progress. Yeah, another friendship-based evolution. Well, that's basically it for this mission. Before I went back to Giovanni and tell him what happened in Pallet Town, I took care of Chansey, and after cycling what felt for an eternity, Chansey's friendship was high enough, and with a single rare candy it evolved into a Blissey. And with 112 Pokemon I ended this mission by talking to Giovanni again. Our next mission is to force Blaine to making Porygon for Team Rocket again, and for that we are handed the HM for Surf. Getting that basically all of Kanto opens for us, and we have a lot of Pokemon to get here. Before I head out for the Cinnabar Islands, I flew to Pewter City and battled the fossil nerd at the museum to get one of his fossils, and of course I chose Lord Helix, and then made my way surfing south of Pallet Town to get to Cinnabar Island. On the way there I got a Starmie, through legal means I swear, and arrived at Cinnabar where I handed over the Helix fossil at the Pokemon Lab. At the Pokemon Mansion I caught Coughing, Grimer, Wheezing, and over at routes 20 and 19 I got another Poliwag for later, Shelder, Seaking, Seal, Goldeen, and another Slowpoke. I made my way to Fuchsia and traded my Golduck for a Lickitung in the guardhouse on Route 18. In Fuchsia I talked to Koga for yet another side mission, which involves teaching the guy who hands out the HM for Surf in the Safari Zone a lesson. For that we have to get into the Safari Zone somehow, but Koga gives us a fake employee ID for that. But that's not enough. Before we enter the zone, we need to visit our good friend the Safari Warden first. Having a little chat with him, somehow, results in him getting his gold teeth knocked out, And since he now can't speak properly anymore, he won't be able to blow our cover when we enter the Safari Zone. 300 IQ play here. Anyways, we enter the Safari Zone, and since we are an employee, we don't have to play the stupid Safari game. Instead, we can regularly battle and catch Pokemon there. Doing so gets us Rhyhorn, Tauros, and Kangaskhan. Unfortunately, we can't complete the side mission in the Safari Zone, since we need to avoid the last trainer who hands out the HM for Surf. We can't steal from him yet, and we need to steal his Pokemon in a later section, since it would be the earliest we could obtain his Pokemon. Leaving the Safari Zone, I flew back to Cinnabar Island, where I picked up my Ormanite. And yeah, we get it at level 5. Great. So, with all Pokemon we can catch or steal so far out of the way, the grind started. The Slowpoke we borrowed earlier evolved into a Slowbro at level 37. Shelder evolved into Cloyster after getting a Water Stone rubbed into his face. Seal evolved into Dugong eventually, Poliwhirl into Politoed, Ormanite into Ormastar at level 40, which you can imagine took a while, Grimer into Muk, and Rhyhorn into Rhydon at level 42. At this point I was looking through my list and was one Pokemon short so far, and I realized I never got a Staryu, so I went back to Route 19, where Swimmer Connie luckily had a Staryu to give away. There's one more Pokemon we could technically obtain now, and some of you may already know which it is. Remember that we did the Nurse Joy side quest earlier? Well, she has a new one. To spend some more time with her boyfriend, we need to get her an assistant, and that's what we do now. You see, the underground pass between Saffron and Celadon City is a lot more busy these days, and, well, in order to get not thrown off YouTube, I can't really explain where I got a new pretty face for the Pewter City Pokemon Center. So let's just say that the girl is better off there anyways. Doing that, Nurse Joy rewards us with HMO3, which is Strength. And now having Strength and Surf, we can revisit a kinda suspicious truck we saw earlier. Doing exactly that and trying to push the truck will result in us getting a battle with the mythical Pokemon Mew. And of course, Mew
will make a fine addition to my collection.
With all 135 Pokemon for the section, it was time to have a word with Blaine, and that's exactly what I did at the basement of Pokemon Mansion. Back at the Celadon hideout, Giovanni gives us a new mission. He has a great idea of occupying the Sylph Company, and our job is it to capture and lock away the scientists there. There's no new Pokemon in this mission, and we do as we told. I just had to be careful to not fight the policeman on floor 7, since we need to steal his Pokemon later on. After locking away all scientists, we head to the office of the Sylph Corps president, where we run into our friend Bill, who seems to suffer a little bit from megalomania. After we put him to his place, Giovanni arrives and we get promoted on spot into a rocket executive. Man, I wish I had that many promotions in real life. Anyways, with that mission done, we are now able to steal the Pokemon from 2 trainers we skipped, and doing so yields us a Flareon from Policeman Gavin. We leave the place and run into Red, who's just about to free Sylph Company and get the Master Ball. Good timing! Over at Route 15, we can also now face a trainer couple and get ourselves a Hitmonchan. And also, we are now free to complete Koga's side mission. And get ourselves a Pinsir. Koga is a real bro though, and for our efforts he gives us some Forged Trainer Pass, so we could technically get gym badges now. In theory we could do that, but we won't, since we can't steal from the gym leaders yet. And doing so now would not allow us to get the maximum amount of Pokemon in the end. We have a little chat with Bill and find out he kinda has his own plan to get a Master Ball, using a special Apricon he planted in Viridian Forest. We grab the Apricon and get to know that Red cleared out the Team Rocket hideout in Celadon, so whole operations move to Viridian City Gym. Going back to our old hideout, we find that it indeed is abandoned, and now we can explore the lab area, which wasn't accessible before. Going there, we find ourselves a burglar, take care of his magma for him, and grab the Pokechip item and a Sunstone. Using that Sunstone immediately, we evolve another Gloom, which I caught earlier, into Belossel. After we return to Bill, we hand it over the Pokechip and we get a Master Ball in return. The plan now is to find the old rocket scientist named Shigeki, who used to work on the Mewtwo project. To find him, we actually need to ask Mewtwo himself. Fun! This marked the end of the old mission, and finding Mewtwo and Shigeki is our new one. So, heading to Cerulean Cave, I defeated the pesky guard and made my way through the maze. In here I could get myself a hands on Wobbuffet before talking to Mewtwo. It explains that it will tell us where Shigeki is, but only after a battle. It also clearly states that using the Master Ball now on it won't be of any use, so we can't get Mewtwo now, for story reasons. Well, after defeating Mewtwo, it tells us that Shigeki is no other than the old man in Viridian City who teaches new trainers how to capture Pokémon? Oh boy! Leaving Cerulean Cave, I made my way to Viridian City and had a talk with Shigeki. Turns out during the Johto Kanto War, Oak, Shigeki, Fuji and Giovanni funded a research project to get an edge over Johto and Lance, and created the Mewtwo project. Before creating Mewtwo though, they created what is called the Catastrophe, a highly unstable and glitched Pokémon. Hold on. Glitched Pokémon? The old man in Viridian City? Oh hell yes, it's missing no time! Shigeki asks us to go to Cinnabar Island and surf at the eastern edge, to actually capture the Catastrophe before it can destroy the region. I am more than obliged to do so and made my way to Cinnabar. Oh boy, that island is... Actually, my game also crashed here, and it took me way too long to realize that it's an actual crash and not some glitchy shenanigans here. Anyways, the Catastrophe was exactly what we all thought it would be, and, I can't believe I'm saying this, I caught and added Missing No to the dex total. Cinnabar returned to normal, and, well, we are ready for our next job. Since we haven't had the opportunity to speak with Oak, we decided to take matters into our own hands, and by using a crowbar we kindly got gifted earlier, we make our way into Oak's lab. He still isn't there, but we find a secret switch, which allows us to enter his secret underground lab. Oh boy, I can tell you, the kind of lore we got here was something I wasn't prepared for. Turns out that Oak wasn't only a war criminal and worked for Team Rocket, but also had merged Mewtwo's DNA with one of an unborn child to get the ultimate super weapon, the trainer we all got to know as Red. Man, I really love this ROM hack. Anyways, before we leave the secret lab, we get a message from Giovanni. All Rocket executives need to rush to Viridian Gym. Going there, well, we see that Giovanni has just been defeated by Red, and decided to give up on Team Rocket as a whole. As a last act of our former boss, he promotes us to head of the Rocket organization, and leaves for good. We are now the boss of Team Rocket. What a promotion! Not even is that pretty cool on its own, but that also means that we can steal from every single trainer of the game now. And I guess you can see where I'm going with this. Our new mission now is to cause some mischief and get the rest of the Pokémon we are still missing. And doing so, I made my way to Victory Road. Before entering the guardhouse, I ran into Lance, who was just defeated by Blue and lost his title of champion. He's a little bit angry and challenges us to a... Seems like that wasn't the only bad life choice he did there, but defeating him we can snatch his Aerodactyl. Since we don't have the gym badges yet, the guards of Victory Road won't let us pass, and it's important that we fight them instead of getting the gym badges because they have some additional Pokémon we wouldn't get otherwise. We battle them and get our hands on some new Pokémon. By defeating them we got Granbull, Noctowl, Murkrow, Ursaring, Houndoom and Skarmory. Before taking on the Elite Four now, let's go get all the gym badges, since we can now also steal from the gym leaders. I decided to start with Brock, and not only got the Boulder badge, but also his Kabutops. Misty gave me the Cascade badge and her Vaporeon. Surge the Thunder badge, his Jolteon, and his Respect. Erika the Rainbow badge, and even though she doesn't have any new Pokémon, we take her Vileplume, for good measure, which she, for some reason, really liked? Excuse me? Erika liking the bad boys, aren't we? Anyways, continuing the gym badges, I defeated Koga for his Soul badge, and another Venomoth, you know, for good measure. Sabrina for the Marsh badge, and, you guessed it, her Alakazam. I broke into Blaine's gym using the crowbar because I wasn't in the mood to go through the Pokemon Mansion again for the door opener, and got the Volcano badge, and his Arcanine, because I'm a... So, with Giovanni gone, Ariana takes the spot for him. and defeating her yields us the Earth Badge. I decided not to steal from her, since we kinda both are rockets, and you know, in rocket culture this would be considered a dick move. So yeah, with all gym badges and Pokemon caught or stolen, I made my way through the actual Victory Road cavern. In there were also new trainers with new Pokemon, and this way I got my hands on Ampharos, Apom, Miltank, Hitmontop, Xatu, Togetic, Sudowoodo, Azumarill, Pupitar, and Espeon. You may think that Pupitar is kind of annoying to deal with, but it was quite high level, and giving it my last rare candies, it immediately evolved into Tyranitar. Over at the Pokemon League, we run into Ronnie, who has been thrown out of the organization before, because he messed up quite a bit. And we also get to know that Red actually defeated all of the Elite Four. Bill and I make our way through the Elite Four to stop Oak and Red, without being able to fight Bruno, Agatha and the others, due to their previous fights with Red. The story plays out and we experience how Red defeat Champion Blue. So, Oak wants to use Red as a puppet figure to rule Kanto, and to get his revenge on the government. And we are here to put an end to his evil plans. I mean, it's our job to rule the Kanto region as an underground boss. Oak and Red leave for the Hall of Fame when Agatha storms in the Champions Room and tries to stop us from advancing further. Using the Sylph Scope one more time, we are able to get around her ghost and challenge her for a battle. Defeating her gives us yet another Pokemon, Misdreavus, and we use our beloved Crowbar once more to make our way into the Hall of Fame. Man, I love this item. Really wish actual Pokemon had crowbars. Entering the Hall of Fame, we can now face Red. But you can imagine, with our over-leveled team, he wasn't really a threat to us. As the cherry on top, we also stole his Charizard here. Turns out Oak is a real psycho though, and he literally turns Agatha into a ghost type, if you get my drift. It's time to put an end to this once and for all, and we face Oak as the final boss. His team was quite a bit stronger than Red's, but eventually we were also able to defeat him and take away his Venusaur. After all of that struggle, Oak still doesn't want to give up, and rushes for the Hall of Fame machine to make Red's title as a champion official. That's where Missing No, the catastrophe, comes into play and saves the day by glitching out the entire Hall of Fame. Classic. Well, what can I say? That was fun. All I remembered afterwards is that the police storms the building and all of us gets arrested and put in court. Oh right, I forgot being the head of Team Rocket. Well, seems like court is also quite a bit corrupt, and while Oak basically gets a free out of jail card handed, we are sentenced to several years in prison. And with 166 Pokemon and 150 hours in-game time, the credits roll and, well, that's it for the Rocket Edition. Or is it? Turns out that Shigeki is a real buddy, and he bails us out of jail. It's time for the post-game, baby! Unfortunately, there's not much to do here. There's no Johto post-game, no Sevi Islands, and not even an Elite Four, Oak, Red or Blue match. So you may ask, what even is out there to catch by this point? I decided to make the post-game my last mission, and went for the last remaining Pokemon that we can get. And so I went to the power plant and got Electabuzz, which is weirdly enough one of the Pokemon missing, and Zapdos. Of course in old legendary fashion, taking forever to catch. Articuno in Seafoam Islands, and Moltres in Victory Road. And with 170 Pokemon caught, there's only one Pokemon left, Mewtwo. It's still in Cerulean Cave, and this time it will allow us to catch it. And, using the Master Ball, we get Mewtwo into our possession, making us the strongest rocket boss to ever have lived. And with 171 Pokemon in total, well, that's it for the Professor Oaks challenge. I can tell you this ROM hack was a lot of fun, and I'm sorry that this video is coming so late. Originally, I was already playing until Mission 3 last year, when my save game got deleted, so I kinda had to start all over again. And for the first 3 sections especially, I used speed up this time. I hope you can understand my decision here and aren't too mad at me. I just wanted to be open with that. Anyways, I hope you all had as much fun as I had. Please let me know your opinion in the comments below. And also please consider liking and subscribing. And until the next time, see ya! Oh, and in case you have wondered, those are all the pickup berries I got. Yeah. It's